There's a quiet fear that creeps in for a lot of people as retirement gets closer. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as a simple question: did I do enough? But here's the thing. A lot of retirees get that question wrong before they even start doing the math. Not because they are careless, because they were taught to focus on the wrong number. The real question isn't how big your nest egg looks on paper. It's whether your income can quietly carry your life without making you panic every month. That is a very different question, and it leads to very different decisions. Think of it this way. Your income floor is like the foundation of your house. Strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings are more like the furniture. That is what so many people miss when they chase a so-called safe spending number. They stare at the furniture. They admire the furniture. They compare furniture with the neighbors. And all the while, the real support system stays quietly ignored. Let that sink in. Some people retire with 7 figures and still feel one market drop away from disaster. Other people retire with much less and sleep just fine. The difference is rarely the headline number alone. It is usually the relationship between income, spending, and certainty. That's what shapes the feeling of safety. That's what shapes real freedom. And that's why this conversation matters so much. Before we continue, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, this would be a really good time to do it. Because if retirement feels confusing, I make videos that turn confusion into clarity. No drama, just practical help. Now, when people talk about safe spending, they often mean this. How much can I pull from my savings each year and still be okay? Maybe they heard 4%, maybe they heard 3%. But fear without clarity is where bad retirement decisions begin. Because once fear takes over, you stop planning. You start reacting, and retirement is too important to live in reaction mode. So let's slow this down. Let's talk about what retirees get wrong about their safe spending number. And more important, let's talk about how to think about it in a way that actually helps you. Because the goal is not to survive retirement with clenched teeth. I want to show you 2 people. Not because one is smart and the other is foolish, but because their stories reveal something most retirement calculators never do. What money feels like when it turns into daily life. Let's call the first one Patricia. She is 67. She spent 35 years as a public school nurse. She lives in a modest paid-off house outside Columbus. Patricia has $186,000 in retirement savings. That number does not impress many people. It might even sound small compared with the giant targets you hear online, but Patricia also has a pension, and she has Social Security. Together, those checks cover almost all of her regular bills: the property taxes, the groceries, the utilities, the insurance. When she wants to visit her sister or replace an old appliance, she uses savings. Not every month, not for survival, just for the extras and the surprises. That changes everything. Now let's look at Ruth. Ruth is 65. She worked as a regional sales manager. She lives in a beautiful condo in a fast-growing suburb. And on paper, she looks like the clear winner. Ruth has $890,000 saved, no pension, a smaller Social Security benefit because she plans to claim early. Most of her retirement lifestyle depends on withdrawals from her portfolio. Every time the market drops, her stomach drops with it. She checks balances in the morning. She checks them again after lunch. She says she is retired, but emotionally she is still reporting to volatility. That is not peace. And this is the contrast people miss. Patricia looks behind if you only compare account balances. Ruth looks ahead if you only compare savings totals. But Patricia feels secure. Ruth feels exposed. It's not about who has more saved. It's about who has more certainty. That one truth quietly flips the whole conversation, because a safe spending number is not just math. It is math plus stability. Here's a question. If you had to choose between more money or more certainty, which would it be? Keep that in your head as we go, because most people say more money at first. Then life teaches them otherwise. Savings give you a cushion for dental work, car repairs, gifts, travel, home fixes, and long stretches of inflation. But savings alone do not create emotional safety. Reliable income does that. That is why 2 retirees with the same portfolio can feel completely different. One has a spending plan anchored by guaranteed income. The other has a spending plan built on hope and market cooperation. Those are not the same thing, and if you treat them as the same thing, you will misread your safe number. This is where the famous big number myth starts doing damage. You know the one. The idea that if you do not have $1 million, maybe 1.5, maybe 2, you are in trouble. That message is everywhere. But retirement is not lived in headlines. It is lived in months. It is lived in utility bills, grocery runs, medication refills, and weekends with family. It is lived in cash flow. That means the real question isn't how much should someone somewhere have saved. It's how much dependable income do you need to support your actual life, in your actual home, with your actual habits and goals. That is the right question, and it is far more useful. Think about a car lot for a second. Every vehicle has a sticker price. Bold, official, intimidating, it looks final. But nobody pays the sticker. There are trade-ins, there are incentives, there is financing, there is timing. Retirement targets work the same way. The giant number you hear is often just a sticker price. It assumes all your spending must come from savings. But many retirees are bringing other resources to the table. Social security, a pension, part-time work they actually enjoy, a paid-off home, lower commuting costs, fewer payroll taxes. These all change the deal. So if you hear that you need $1 million, but your income sources already cover most of your needs, that sticker price may not be your real price at all. And if you do have $1 million, but little guaranteed income, your real cost may feel much higher. That is why context matters. That means you have to start with expenses, not guesses, not rough feelings, actual expenses. Because one of the biggest mistakes retirees make is quietly underestimating what life costs now. Not wildly, just enough to cause problems later. They forget irregular bills, home maintenance, insurance increases, gifts, travel. A new water heater is not a surprise in the sense that homes age. It is only a surprise because it does not happen every month. The same goes for tires, dental crowns, and helping family during hard seasons. These are real expenses. If you ignore them, your safe spending number becomes a fairy tale. And fairy tales are dangerous when they are attached to your future. So before you ask what percentage is safe, ask whether your expense picture is honest. That matters more than most people realize. Here's something to think about. If you found out today that you're actually on track, how would that change your week? Would you breathe easier? Would you sleep better? Would you stop punishing yourself for not hitting someone else's target? Start with Social Security. For many people, this is the backbone of retirement income. And yet it is often discussed like a side dish. That is a mistake. Think of Social Security as a safety net, one you paid into your whole life, one that is designed to catch you when you need it most. That check is not just money, it is inflation-adjusted income for life. That last part matters, because a lot of retirees underestimate how valuable a lifetime check really is, especially one with cost of living adjustments, especially one that keeps coming no matter what the market did this week. Claiming at 62 gives you smaller checks sooner. Waiting until full retirement age gives you more. Waiting until 70 gives you even more. You are not just choosing a date. You are choosing a level of guaranteed income. That means the real question isn't what is the best age for everyone. It's what is the best decision for your life right now, for your health, for your spouse, for your work situation, for your savings. If you have serious health issues or truly need the income, earlier claiming may make sense. If you have longevity in your family, a spouse who may outlive you, or not enough guaranteed income elsewhere, waiting can be powerful. Not because it wins a contest, because it builds a stronger floor. And remember, for married couples, Social Security is not just about your check. It is also about survivor income. If one spouse dies, one check usually disappears. The larger benefit remains. That means the claiming decision of the higher earner can echo for decades. Let me ask you, have you ever calculated what your pension is actually worth in real dollars? Most people never do. And that matters more than you think, because when people look at pensions casually, they often treat them like background noise. They should not. A pension can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in practical terms, sometimes more. If someone offered you the choice between a monthly lifetime pension and a pile of cash that had to create the same income, the pile would have to be large, very large. But because the pension arrives in monthly pieces, retirees often undervalue it. They say, "I only saved $200,000. Meanwhile, They are sitting on the equivalent of a private income machine they could never comfortably buy today. That is a major misunderstanding. Ruth, on the other hand, feels every dollar as a withdrawal. Every vacation feels like subtraction. Every home repair feels like a tiny alarm bell. That is what happens when income is weak and portfolio dependence is high. Again, this does not mean Ruth is doomed. Far from it. It means her safe spending number should not be built from a simplistic rule alone. She needs a fuller plan, one that respects sequence of returns risk. That term sounds technical, so let's make it simple. Imagine you have a bucket of water and you keep scooping from it every month. If the bucket gets refilled steadily, you are fine. But if a hot, dry wind shows up early and evaporates a lot at once, you are in trouble faster. That is why a retiree who depends heavily on savings cannot think about a safe spending number the same way as someone whose bills are mostly covered by guaranteed income. They are facing different risks, and good planning respects that. Now let's talk about inflation, because inflation is like an ice cube in the sun. It does not melt all at once. It nudges. It quietly erodes. Your groceries cost a little more. Your car insurance costs a little more. Your prescription costs a little more. Then suddenly the life that felt manageable 3 years ago feels tighter. That is how inflation works. It is a silent eroder. And when retirees set a safe spending number based only on today's bills, they often underestimate how much future versions of those bills will demand. That does not mean you need to panic. It means you need to plan honestly. Savings can help fill the gap. But again, this is why income structure matters more than a big account total by itself. $1 million without inflation-aware planning can feel smaller every year. A smaller portfolio with strong lifetime income can feel surprisingly durable. Quick question. Have you ever felt guilty about spending money in retirement? A lot of people do. And it is not always because they are irresponsible. Sometimes it is because they never built trust in their plan. If every dollar feels like a threat, you will not enjoy the money even when you technically have enough. That is a hidden retirement problem nobody talks about enough. You can be financially okay and emotionally miserable. That is not success. So what creates spending confidence? First, knowing which expenses are covered no matter what. Second, knowing which expenses are flexible. Third, knowing how long your savings need to do their job. And fourth, knowing what could knock the plan off course. Here is another mistake retirees make. They treat all spending as if it behaves the same. It does not. Some spending is essential, some spending is adjustable, and some spending comes in waves. Housing, utilities, basic food, insurance, and medication often sit in the essential category. Travel, gifts, hobbies, and dining out are usually more flexible. Home repairs and medical surprises arrive in clumps. That matters. Because if you can separate core spending from optional spending, your safe number becomes more intelligent. You stop asking one giant vague question. You start asking better smaller ones. Like this. Think of retirement in 2 piles. Pile 1 is income that shows up no matter what. Pile 2 is savings and investments. If pile 1 covers your essentials, pile 2 can breathe. If pile 1 does not cover your essentials, pile 2 has to work much harder. And when pile 2 has to work harder, your safe spending number gets more fragile. Not impossible, just more sensitive. That sensitivity matters in bad years. Because when markets fall and you still need groceries, you cannot tell the electric company to wait for a rebound. Real life continues. Bills do not pause for volatility. That is why income-first thinking is so powerful. Now listen, a lot of people will hear this and think, I am saying everyone should delay retirement, delay Social Security, and never touch savings. That is not what I am saying. I am saying your decisions should come from your income design, not from fear-driven comparison. The goal is alignment. Your numbers, your health, your home, your marriage, your priorities. When those line up, retirement feels calmer. When they do not, even big savings can feel shaky. Here's something most people never consider. Do you know the difference between what you need and what you want in retirement? That gap is where so much peace or stress gets decided. Because if you confuse wants with needs, your plan looks heavier than it really is. The trick is knowing the cost of enough, not somebody else's enough, yours. That number may be lower than you think, or it may be higher. Either way, you want the truth. Let's go back to Ruth for a moment. On paper, her advisor once told her she could probably withdraw around $35,000 a year, adjusted over time. That sounded fine. until markets dropped right after she retired. Suddenly, the same withdrawal felt aggressive. Then inflation pushed up her condo fees and insurance. Then her son needed temporary help after a job loss. Now the neat percentage rule looked less neat. Life had entered the room. Patricia's life has surprises too. She had to replace part of her roof. Her medication costs changed. She helped her granddaughter with books one semester. But because her baseline income is strong, surprises stay in the surprise category. They do not become existential threats. That is a huge difference. And it is why some retirees with smaller balances feel more relaxed than retirees with larger ones. Not because they are magical, because the structure is different. So when someone asks, "What is my safe spending number?" I want you to hear the deeper question underneath it. Am I building this answer from savings alone, or from a complete picture of income, expenses, inflation, and risk? That is the real divide. What matters is the spendable number, not the top line. And if you ignore that, you can think you are safe when you are actually tight, or think you are tight when you are actually okay. Again, clarity changes everything. That does not mean you need to budget for catastrophe every year, but it does mean your safe spending number should leave room for reality. A plan with zero margin is not really a plan. It is a wish with paperwork. The retiree in a paid-off modest house may need far less monthly income than the retiree in a high-fee condo with rising assessments. That does not make one superior. It just means the safe spending number has to match the setting. Context. Again, I want to ask you something personal. Have you ever avoided opening your retirement statements because you were afraid of what you'd see? If so, you are not broken. You are human. Money fear makes people look away. Clarity lightens the load, even when the numbers are not perfect. Because once you see the truth, you can act. Cut here, wait there, claim differently. Maybe you work one more year. Maybe you switch from full-time to part-time. Maybe you delay Social Security to strengthen survivor protection. Maybe you spend more now because the plan is already sturdier than you thought. All of those are adult decisions, and adult decisions are built on reality, not on vague dread. That is why I want to spend a minute on perceived data versus real data, because retirement fear often comes from perception, not numbers. Real data asks different questions. What are your actual monthly expenses? How much of that is already covered by reliable income? How much flexibility do you have when markets fall? How does inflation affect your plan over 10 or 20 years? Real data may show you are safer than your emotions suggest, or it may show that one or two changes could dramatically improve your position. Either way, real data is kinder than fantasy, because truth can be worked with. There is also the matter of longevity. People sometimes build a safe spending number around an average life expectancy and call it done. That is risky. If you or your spouse live a long time, average is not your life. That means claiming decisions, pension payout choices, and spending levels should all be viewed through a shared lens. Not just how things look while both of you are here, but how the surviving spouse lives after a loss. That is love in financial form. Let me ask you, have you ever thought about what your ideal retirement day actually looks like? Not the numbers, just the feeling. Because this matters. If your plan ignores the life you actually want, it will never feel satisfying. Some people want travel, some want gardening and quiet mornings, some want to help family, some want freedom to say yes without checking an app first. Those desires should shape the math. So how do you actually get closer to a safe spending number that makes sense? You start by backing away from one magic percentage, and you begin with a layered approach, simple, grounded, honest. First, find your essential monthly spending. I mean the real core: housing, food, utilities, insurance, healthcare, transportation, basic personal needs, the bills that keep life functioning. Then compare that total with dependable income, Social Security, pensions, any other reliable checks. If dependable income covers those essentials, you are standing on stronger ground than you may realize. If it does not, you have identified the exact gap your savings must fill every month. That is useful. That is specific. Second, separate your flexible spending. Travel, dining out, gifts, hobbies, home upgrades. These things matter. They are part of life, but they are also adjustable when conditions change. Knowing that difference gives your plan resilience. You stop treating every expense as equally permanent. Third, Pressure test the plan against inflation, not just for 1 year, for 10, for 20. Ask what happens if insurance rises faster than expected. Ask what happens if groceries keep nudging upward. Ask what happens if your pension does not adjust much, but your needs do. This is not pessimism, it is realism. And in this case, realism is empowering. Fourth, think through bad timing. What if the market drops in your first few years of retirement? What if a roof repair lands in the same season? What if one spouse dies sooner than expected? The goal is not to predict tragedy. The goal is to know whether your plan bends or breaks. A strong plan can absorb ugly years. A weak plan depends on everything going right. You never want a retirement plan that requires perfect weather. Fifth, revisit claiming decisions with fresh eyes, especially Social Security, especially if you are married. A bigger guaranteed check later can sometimes do more for lifelong safety than an extra pile of investments. Sometimes not. But at least ask the question correctly. The real question isn't how fast can I get my money back? It's how much protected income do I want later, when flexibility may matter less and certainty may matter more. That is the wiser lens. Quick check. Do you know your full retirement age for Social Security? Most people don't. And if you do not know it, you may be making assumptions about your benefit that are simply off. Little misunderstandings there can have big, lifelong consequences. There is one more point I need to make. Some retirees chase a safe spending number as if it should never change. But retirement is not static. Your spending will shift. Your health will shift. Your priorities will shift. A plan that adapts is stronger than a plan that pretends life stays frozen. That is why annual checkups matter. Not obsessive daily monitoring, just steady review. Look at the plan. And that should encourage you, because it means you do not have to solve your entire future perfectly today. You need clarity. You need awareness. You need a system for making better decisions as life unfolds. You don't need perfection to have a successful retirement. You need clarity. That may sound simple, but it is powerful. Clarity cuts through noise. Clarity tells you whether the giant savings target applies to you or not. Clarity tells you whether your income floor is solid or shaky. Clarity tells you whether spending less is smart or just fearful. And clarity tells you when to enjoy what you already built. So if you have been asking, what is my safe spending number? I want you to change the frame. Ask instead, what part of my life is already secured by dependable income? What part relies on savings? And how much uncertainty can I realistically handle? That is a grown-up retirement question. Because safe spending is not just about maximizing withdrawals. It is about minimizing regret. It is about protecting dignity. It is about keeping options open. And it is about sleeping at night. Think about Patricia and Ruth one more time. Patricia is not relaxed because she has no problems. She is relaxed because her foundation holds. Ruth is anxious not because she failed, but because her foundation is thinner than her balance suggests. The difference is structure. The difference is income. The difference is whether your plan supports your life quietly, month after month, without making you feel hunted. That is what you are really after. So here is my practical promise to you. This week, sit down and write out your true monthly essentials. Then list every guaranteed income source beside them. Do not guess. Use real numbers. After that, list your flexible spending separately. Name the good life items you want to protect. Travel, family help, hobbies, dining out, then create a space for irregular expenses, home repairs, medical surprises, car costs, the things that are not monthly but are absolutely part of real life. If you do this, your plan will already be smarter. Next, revisit your Social Security timing, especially if you are married. Look at what changes for the surviving spouse. Do not treat that decision like a simple race to collect first. It is an income design choice. And finally, stop using other people's savings totals as a mirror for your worth. Their life is not your life. Their housing costs are not your housing costs. Their pension situation is not your pension situation. Comparison quietly poisons good planning. Use your own numbers, your own goals, your own definition of enough. Because once you understand those things, the fog starts to lift. And when the fog lifts, fear usually loses some of its power. Retirement is not about how much you've accumulated. It's about whether your income can support your life. That is the heart of it. That is the part too many people skip. And that is why they keep feeling unsure. If the system only rewards you with almost enough, you will spend your entire life chasing more. But if you understand your numbers, if you build your income, if you define your life on your terms, you do not chase anymore. You decide. And that is the shift from fear to clarity, from chasing to choosing, from comparison to confidence, from a scary abstract number to a retirement life that actually fits. That is what I want for you. That is what good planning can do. Before you go, if this helped you see your retirement differently, subscribe. There's more where this came from. And if you stay with me, we will keep turning complicated retirement questions into answers you can actually use.